What is up, everybody? Escape 211 here, and we're getting into another Mech Arena Basics. I'm hoping this one's just going to be a short one because we're really just going to go through settings in the game. Now, I've had a lot of people ask me what are the optimal settings for this game. Some of the stuff I don't know what they mean, so we're going to go over some of that stuff real quickly. All right, so if you want to get into your settings, you just want to hit your icon. Right now I have the Mech Arena A up here, and if you do that, you'll start with these different screens. We'll go through each. First, you have your profile information, no big deal there. Then you can look over your battles and details from those battles here. Then we get into the connection. This is the first one we might want to stop at and talk. So first of all, I will say you should sign into this game with something. You need something to connect this game to, just so that if something happens to your device, if you want to use another device or you upgrade yours or something else, you have it linked to something, because there are a lot of times that people will lose data if they don't have it linked. Signing in with Plarium is really easy. You can just put an email, password, and register. Signing in with either Apple or Android, depending on your device, is also easy. But I recommend eventually, maybe not right away, but signing in with Facebook. And here is why. First of all, you get 100 A-coins for signing up, which is cool. But in this game, you have 100 in-game friends. Now, this sounds like a decent amount, but after you play for about a month or so, that will get very small. Facebook will allow you to use your friends from Facebook, and you can use unlimited friends from Facebook. So as long as you link your account to Facebook and you're friends with other people on Facebook, they will be your friends in game. That's why I tell everyone to friend me on Facebook. I have a lot of friends, but that only works because I have Facebook, so I can be friends with all of you. So I highly recommend that. But I will have a word of caution. If you are going to connect it to your Facebook, please don't use your personal Facebook. I actually made a gaming Facebook page, and I recommend everyone do that. Now, if you don't really use your Facebook, you don't have too much personal information on there, you're probably fine, but a lot of people have their photos and other information about their life on there that you probably don't want everyone to see or share with everyone. So I recommend making a Facebook. The other word of caution I will say, though, is when you are ready to connect it to Facebook, you want to make sure that you have the right Facebook, all right, that you're connecting it to. Because once you connect this to a Facebook, it's difficult to disconnect it from a Facebook. You actually have to contact the Plarium support to disconnect it, which is a bit of a pain. So when you are ready to connect it to Facebook, just make sure you connect it to the right one, all right? The other thing of note on this one is just the useful links they have. They have their personal Facebook there. They have their Discord, very useful to have, their YouTube as well, and their forums. All these are great ways to contact them, but the most important one I would say is support down here, the in-game support. This is where you can actually contact customer service with support tickets for things like bugs, account issues, all of that. If you want to leave feedback or suggestions, even, this is probably the best place to do it. If you have problems with stuff going on, don't tell me about it. I don't actually work for Plarium. I can't help you with that stuff, but you want to go here. This is the best place to do it, and will probably get your answers in the quickest. You can do it through other means, like I said, Facebook, Discord, and stuff, but this will likely be the fastest for you. All right, so let's move on. Let's go to these basic settings. Now, not anything crazy of note here. Yeah, you can change language, notifications, music, sound effects. I will say I would love it, Plarium, if you see this video, to have the ability to adjust like a slider bar for your music and sound effects. On and off is nice, and I appreciate that, but I would love to be able to turn down my sound effects if I'm like playing with people on a headset or something like that, and I'm trying to talk to them so that I can hear them over the sounds of the game. But just a little minor thing, but it would be cool to have that sometime in the future. The other thing here, though, in this little this section is the FPS and ping indicator. That can be very helpful if you're having issues with connection, or you see mechs start to lag or warp, or some of your damage isn't going when it hits a mech or something like that in the game. Having your FPS and ping indicator on will give you a little bit of information. It'll actually show up on your game screen right about where my head is right now. I'm pointing down, but it's like, well, right in this area. It'll be like around here somewhere in the match, to give you an idea of like when your ping is too high or your FPS is getting too low. And then you'll be able to see what's happening that's maybe causing it. So it's kind of a little bit of a troubleshoot help, but you know, some people like it on, some off. It's not a big deal. But that's another thing that can be helpful. And then you have your graphic settings. I recommend for people in this one that you want to have your FPS at 60 primarily. You can survive at 30 for sure, but 60 is going to be the best. That's usually the best performance, at least for gaming. If you can get it higher, you can actually with BlueStacks go higher than that, but having 60 is a solid base if you can manage it. And you can adjust your settings up here to signify that. Shadows aren't important either. Like, I would mess with all of those settings to make sure you can maintain 60. And then camera sensitivity is another one people ask about. Right now, I have mine in the middle, but if you want to be very precise with your crosshairs, especially if you're like a long-range player, you might want to bring your camera sensitivity down. If you get more close up, and if you want to be able to, move your torso quicker, you can have your sensitivity up higher. Most people, I would say, like to have it higher so that they can react to enemies quickly. But then they just, at that higher sensitivity, try to get used to how they're aiming and targeting moves when they're at long range. You definitely can do it, but I've gotten really used to just the default, so I'm going to go back to that. But yeah, if you're new and you can stomach doing it higher, I would recommend it. But that's all for that one. So let's go on to the controls. This is more the big one. This first section where you can customize your controls is really nice. If you're new to the game, I would try to customize this, especially if you have like a tablet or something that's bigger on screen. That'll be really handy for you. For me, I have been playing on my phone, and they didn't used to have this like controller setup when I first started playing games, so I got used to the default. So I haven't really changed mine, but this is a great place to play around with those settings, especially early on in the game for you. Then our crosshairs, I use the circle. None of these are really better than another. People ask me about my crosshairs, why I use the circle and not like the plus. The plus is good. I just thought it was just too much clutter in there, and I didn't feel like I needed it. The dot is just a dot, and that is it, and that was really hard for me to see when I'm trying to aim down sights, and the circle has just been the perfect middle for me. And I think actually a decent amount of people use the circle in the game as well, so maybe the majority, but I'm not too sure. This, again, is just really a preference thing. All right, damage display is another good size one to talk about. I believe the default is right in the middle where it will show your damage values, but I don't want to take too long on this because Plarium has an excellent video where they talk about the damage values, but I'll try to go over some of this briefly. Now, if you do just disabled, it will not show your damage values. It will just show that red X. It will pop up when you actually hit a target. So if you're shooting a missile and it hits the target, a red X will just quickly flash to show you that you actually hit your target. All right, that's really simple. Next one amps it up a little bit and adds damage values, and the damage values are on the left and the right based on where your weapons are. If you're shooting with this weapon, it'll show up over here. Shooting with this weapon will show up over here. Really simple, not too involved there, and it keeps the red X. And this one is what I recommend most people do. And if you click this little eye for damage display, you can see a little more detail on it. Overall, this is about your damage indicators, and it's color coded, which is really nice. So when you are in optimal range hitting something, you will see yellow text, which is what you want. When you are not at optimal range and you are hitting your target, you will see white text, so that it means you are outside of optimal range. Next up, they have the side and back damage. This game doesn't do headshots or anything like that. It has front damage and then side damage to the mech and then back damage. All right, so when you're hitting side damage, you will see a little bit of a red, it's kind of hard to see on the screen actually, you'll see a little bit of red text or a little bit of red outline or like a stroke around your text. All right, and then when you hit back damage, you'll see a thicker red stroke around your text, and the text will actually, I think, increase in size a little bit to almost let you know that you're hitting like back damage, because that's like the strongest damage in the game, does twice as much as front damage, right? So ideally you want to be in optimal range, your text would be yellow and it would be big with, you know, red outline around it to be hitting back damage at optimal range. That's where you're going to be doing your biggest damage. But sometimes I have people, like, since they don't really know what this color coding system means, they'll say, I had a guy who was further away and I did like 1,000K a second, then when he got closer it was only like 700, you know, like something a second. It wasn't the same. It was actually less when he was closer. What does that mean? Well, it has to do with your optimal range and if you're hitting front, side, or back damage, and these color indicators help you a lot with that. But again, if you want more detail or to see that in action, definitely check out Plarium's video for it. I will link it below so you can check it out too. All right, and then we get into the target assist system. This is the other one that I had a big question about. There are two different ways to target, and they generally function for different reasons. If you're going to be using, and I think it's default on wide target assist, this is where it will basically cycle through your targets or target the enemy for you as you turn your torso to them. This is really good and useful for direct fire weapons or when you want to cycle targets fast. This is a great way to do it. So if you're using a suppression weapon or something like that, you're going to want to use this type of targeting system. Now, it does mean you can move to other targets quickly, and sometimes you'll go off your target. So when you're on this setting, you can also manually lock onto your target. and I'll go back up into the customize so you can see it here. This little button, it didn't show up before because I was on vertical target assist, is the the manual locking system. So when you're on wide target assist and you want to make sure you keep on a target, tap this button, it will say target lock, and then even if you start turning your torso over here, it will stay locked onto that target. So this is the way that you can manually lock onto the target if you like to be able to cycle through targets. This is actually a really good way to do it. I like doing this for most general play with like suppression weapons, and especially javelin racks when you want to be able to cycle targets but then lock onto a specific one quickly. Wide targeting assist is ideal for all of that. But what does that mean for vertical target assist? Yeah, we'll go with that. Vertical target assist is more so when you're trying to aim long range or down sights, most typically, because that is where, like, when you find a target, it will mostly stay onto that target. If you're using wide and you're trying to do that, it can cycle your targets on you, and you don't always want it to do that. So this will be very nice for that. This is especially the case when you're using manually aiming weapons, specifically the long arm and the railgun. Vertical targeting assist is where it's at, because it actually does have a little bit of an auto, like, crosshair movement type of assist. It's not auto targeting, but it does help you a little bit. It gives you a little bit of a benefit for using this type of targeting system with manually aiming weapons. So I recommend it for that. But either one you pick, honestly, you should be able to change it on the fly when you're in battle if you find you like one or the other more or less. But definitely play around with these two and use them in different situations and in different loadouts to find out what works best for you. I think it's generally like, you know, like I've said, wide targeting assist is cycling fast for direct fire, and then vertical targeting assist is long range manual aiming stuff. All right. Also for these, I'll just quickly say that those little lines, so like on this one you have your dot, and then you have those two curved lines underneath it, and then for this you have those two thick white lines. Those are ammo bars, ammo indicators. So if you want to look right at your target, instead of looking at your indicators in the bottom corner, you can see those levels go down as you shoot at them. So it's a quick little reference guide for that. All right, but speaking of that, we'll talk about how you reload your weapon. So you saw on my setup for my customization that I have ammo indicators and that they are tap based. That's the way I like to do it. Some people like to use the swipe up method. I actually tried that before and it didn't work for me. I don't know why. I think it was just the way I move my thumb or how I play. But I like to just have the button where I press to manually reload my weapons. That's just generally worked better for me. But some people like the swipe method. It can be very effective. But again, that's really just a preference thing. So you'll find that a lot of this stuff is preference based, but yeah, the targeting assist is good to know, having the damage indicators is good to know, and that kind of stuff for sure is beneficial. And then of course linking your account. But that covers all the basis of like the settings in the game and how you can optimize it to work best for you. So I hope that was helpful, guys. Overall, that is just the core of all that setting stuff. And if you have other things or questions that you want about settings or how to use that kind of stuff, feel free to comment below. Again, since this is the basic series, if you're new to the game and you have questions about that kind of stuff, or you'd like to see a video on a certain topic, again, please comment below. But otherwise, we'll see you out there on the battlefield.